Dr. Hannah Kim walked through the long metal hallway of the space station. Her footsteps echoed in the quiet corridor. She carried a small datapad in her hands. The device felt heavy even though it weighed almost nothing. 3 years of her life were stored inside that little screen. The Galactic Council meeting room was huge. The ceiling stretched high above her head. Rows of seats filled the space. Each seat was designed for different alien species. Some were tall and thin, others were short and wide. The air smelled like metal and strange chemicals. Hannah took her place at the speaker platform. Her heart beat fast in her chest. She looked out at the council members. The insect-like Thorokari clicked their sharp teeth together. Their black eyes stared at her without blinking. The crystal beings called Vexahol glowed with soft blue light. They looked like living diamonds. Behind her sat other human scientists. Dr. Kangsu Park was there. He had been her friend for many years. But now he looked worried. His face was pale. He had told her not to come here today. He said she would embarrass herself and all humans. The lead Thorokari delegate stood up. His name was Commander Zixtel. Voice sounded like grinding metal when he spoke. Dr. Kim, you may present your findings to the council. Hannah cleared her throat. Her mouth felt dry. She pressed a button on her datapad. A large hologram appeared above her head, showed wave patterns and numbers. Honored council members, she began. For 3 years, I have been studying strange signals from space. These signals come from beyond the void barrier. Most scientists think they are just random noise, but I believe they are something else. She paused and looked around the room. The alien faces showed no emotion. Some of the humans in the back shook their heads. These signals are not random, Hannah continued. They follow patterns, human patterns. The mathematics match human science. The language structures match human speech. Even the cultural references are human. Commander Zixtel made a harsh clicking sound. Impossible. Humans have been limited to their home system for over 200 years. No human has crossed the void barrier and survived. The void barrier was a massive energy wall that surrounded human space. The aliens had built it long ago. They said it was to protect other species from human aggression. Humans were told they were too violent to travel among the stars. The barrier kept them trapped in their own solar system. Hannah pressed another button. New images appeared in the hologram. They showed radio waves and data streams. Look at these. Transmission logs, she said. The signals repeat every 47 hours. They use old Earth calendar systems. They reference human holidays and historical events. One signal even mentioned the Earth city of Seoul on New Year's Day. A Vexahol representative began to glow brighter. The crystal being's voice sounded like music when it spoke. Dr. Kim, your species is known for emotional thinking. See patterns that do not exist because you want them to exist. These are likely echoes from your own system communications. Hannah felt her face get hot. She had heard this argument many times. Scientists said she was imagining things. They said she wanted to find humans in space so badly that she was making up evidence. I have checked for system echoes, she replied. These signals come from thousands of light years away. They are too far to be echoes, and they are too complex to be random. She changed the hologram again. This time it showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked where the signals came from. They formed a rough circle around human space. But they were all beyond the void barrier. The signals are coordinated, Hannah explained. They all point toward Earth, like someone is trying to find their way home. Dr. Park stood up from his seat. His voice was quiet, but everyone could hear him. Hannah, please stop. You're embarrassing. Our entire species. The council chamber became very quiet. Hannah felt alone on the platform. Even her own people did not believe her. She looked down at her datapad. All those years of work, all those late nights studying signals from space, was she really wrong? Then she remembered something. When she was a child, her grandmother told her stories about the old days, before the void barrier, before humans were trapped in their solar system. Her grandmother talked about brave explorers who went to the stars. She said some of them never came home. What if they did not die? Hannah had asked her grandmother. Then they would try to come back to us, her grandmother had replied. Family always tries to come home. Hannah looked up at the council. She thought about her grandmother's words. She thought about all the humans who had been cut off from Earth when the barrier went up. Where did they go? What happened to them? It's family, she said quietly. The chamber was so silent that everyone heard her words. What did you say, Commander? Zixtal asked. Hannah spoke louder this time. It's family. They're calling home. The council erupted in angry sounds. The Thraccari clicked their teeth rapidly. The Vexahol flashed bright red. Other alien species made noises of disbelief. Ridiculous, shouted a delegate from the back. Humans cannot survive in deep space. The void barrier kills all living things. That try to cross it, added another voice. Commander Zixtal raised his arm for silence. The room became quiet again. Dr. Kim, the council finds your research to be based on emotional speculation rather than scientific fact. Your findings are classified as inconclusive. This hearing is closed. Hannah felt her heart sink. She had failed. 3 years of work dismissed in minutes. She gathered her datapad and walked toward the exit. The other human scientists avoided looking at her. Some whispered to each other as she passed. As she reached the door, she heard Commander Zixtal speaking to another delegate. Make sure Dr. Kim's research funding is reduced. Cannot have humans chasing fantasies. Outside in the hallway, Dr. Park caught up with her. Hannah, I am sorry, but you knew this would happen. The evidence is not strong enough. Hannah stopped walking. She turned to face her old friend. What if I am right, Kyung-soo? What if there are humans out there trying to come home? Park sighed. And they have been trying for 200 years. Why would they succeed now? Hannah did not answer. She walked away down the long corridor. But in her mind, she could still hear the signals. They were out there somewhere beyond the stars calling home, calling for family. She would not give up, even if everyone thought she was crazy. Even if she had to work alone, somewhere in the darkness of space, humans were trying to return to Earth, and she would help them find their way home. The council meeting was over, but for Dr. Hannah Kim, the real work was just beginning. 3 months had passed since Dr. Hannah Kim stood before the Galactic Council. 3 months since they called her research worthless. 3 months since her own people turned their backs on her. Now she worked alone in a small laboratory on the orbital research station. The room was cramped and cold. Old equipment hummed quietly in the corners. Most of it was outdated technology that other scientists had thrown away. But Hannah made it work. Her funding had been cut to almost nothing. The council gave her just enough money to keep her quiet. They hoped she would give up and find other work. Her research team had been reassigned to different projects. Her colleagues avoided her in the hallways. But Hannah did not give up. Every day she came to her small lab. Every night she stayed late studying the signals from space. The data was still there. The patterns were still clear. She knew she was right. The door to her lab opened with a soft hiss. Ginwoo Eseo walked in carrying 2 cups of hot coffee. He was young, maybe 25 years old. His job was to maintain the communication systems on the station. But he spent most of his free time helping Hannah with her research. Dr. Kim, he said, setting a cup on her desk. You have been here for 18 hours straight. You need to rest. Hannah looked up from her computer screen. Her eyes were red and tired. Her black hair was messy from running her fingers through it. She had not eaten since yesterday morning. I cannot rest, Jinwoo. I am close to something important. Jinwoo sat down in a chair next to her desk. He was the only person on the station who still believed in her work. The only person who did not think she had lost her mind. Jinwoo had grown up on Mars Colony before the Great Isolation. His family had been farmers there. They grew food for the human settlements in the outer system. When the aliens decided humans were too dangerous, they forced everyone back to Earth. Jinwoo was just a child then, but he remembered the ships leaving. He remembered the families that got separated. What did you find? Hannah turned her computer screen toward him. The display showed wave patterns and frequency charts. Lines of data scrolled past in different colors. Look at this, she said, pointing to the screen. The signals are not random distress calls. They're organized. Multiple sources are sending coordinated messages. Jinwoo studied the data carefully. He had learned a lot about communication systems in the past 3 months. Hannah had taught him how to read the patterns. The timing is too perfect, he said slowly. These signals are synchronized. Exactly, Hannah replied. Someone is controlling them. Someone is organizing a large group of transmitters. She pressed a button, and the display changed. Now it showed a 3-dimensional map of space. Red dots marked the locations where signals came from. Blue lines connected them together. Jinwoo, look at the formation. What does this remind you? Jinwoo stared at the map for a long time. The red dots were arranged in a specific pattern. They moved together through space. The blue lines showed they were all connected to a central point. It looks like a fleet, he whispered. A fleet of ships. Hannah nodded. Her heart was beating fast with excitement. Not just any fleet. A fleet that has been trying to come home. For 200 years, she changed the display again. This time, it showed historical data from before the Void Barrier was built. Old records of human ships that had been exploring deep space when the aliens cut them off. The Colonial Fleet Explorer. Group Hannah read from the files. 47 ships sent to establish mining colonies beyond the Outer Rim. They were cut off when the barrier went up. Everyone assumed they died. Jinwoo leaned forward in his chair. What if they did not die? What if they survived out there? Then they would try to come home, Hannah said. They would try to contact Earth. They would send signals. The two humans sat in silence for a moment. The idea was huge. If Hannah was right, there were thousands of humans still alive beyond the Void Barrier. Humans who had been forgotten by everyone on Earth. Dr. Kim Jinwoo said carefully, If this is true, why do the aliens not want us to know? Hannah had been thinking about this question for months. The aliens had always said the Void Barrier was for protection. They said humans were too aggressive and violent. They said other species needed to be kept safe from human expansion. But what if that was not the real reason? What if the aliens were afraid of something else? Maybe they know the humans out there survived, she said quietly. Maybe they know what those humans became after 2 centuries of isolation. Jinwoo felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? Think about it, Hannah continued. Humans trapped in deep space with no support from Earth. No supply ships. No communication with home. They would have to adapt. They would have to become stronger, harder, more independent. She pulled up another file on her computer. It showed population estimates for the human colonies before the barrier went up. There were over 50,000 people in the outer colonies when contact was lost. Jinwoo, what if they not only survived but thrived? What if they built something the aliens never expected? The laboratory door chimed. Someone was requesting entry. Hannah and Jinwoo looked at each other with worry. Nobody visited Hannah's lab. Anymore? The other scientists thought her work was useless. Enter, Hannah called out. The door opened, and Commander Yuki Tanaka walked in. She was the human liaison officer for the research station. Her job was to represent human interests to the alien administrators. Dr. Kim, Commander Tanaka said. Her voice was formal and cold. I need to speak with you. Hannah saved her work and closed the files on her screen. She had learned to be careful about who saw her research. What can I do for you, Commander? What? Galactic Council has received complaints about your continued research into the deep space signals. They consider the matter closed. You are ordered to stop this work immediately. Hannah felt anger rising in her chest. On whose authority? On the authority of the Thrakri Science Division. They believe your research is causing unnecessary anxiety among the human population. Jinwoo stood up from his chair. Commander, what if Dr. Kim is right? What if there are humans out there? Commander Tanaka looked at him with cold eyes. Then they have been dead for 200 years. The council has made their decision. Dr. Kim, you will cease this research or face removal from the station. Doctor? The commander left. Hannah and Jinwoo sat in silence. The threat was clear. If she continued her work, she would lose everything. Her job, her lab, her chance to help the lost humans. But as she looked at the data on her screen, she knew she could not stop. Somewhere beyond the stars, humans were calling for help. They were family, and family did not abandon family. "Ginwoo," she said quietly, "are you still willing to help me?" The young man smiled. "Dr. Kim, my family was separated by the barrier too. My uncle was on a mining ship when contact was lost. If there is a chance he is still alive, I have to try." Unknown to them, their conversation was being recorded. In the shadows of the Galactic Intelligence Network, certain parties were watching. Dr. Hannah Kim very carefully. Her research was getting too close to dangerous truths. Truths that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The real question was not whether humans had survived beyond the barrier. The question was what they had become in their long exile, and whether the galaxy was ready for their return. Part 3. The Discovery, Captain Du-Hyen Lee, was having a normal patrol day when his universe changed forever. The ship, the Harmony's Edge, was a small patrol vessel that monitored the outer edges of known space. It was boring work. Most days they saw nothing but empty stars and cosmic dust. Du-Hyen had been a patrol captain for 12 years. He was used to quiet shifts where nothing happened. His crew was small. There was Krixta, a Throkari navigation officer with sharp insect eyes. There was also Engineer Voss, a Vexahol crystal being who kept the ship running smoothly. They were checking the edge of the void barrier when the alarm started screaming. Captain Krixta clicked excitedly. "I am detecting massive gravitational disturbances ahead." Du-Hyen looked at his display screen. The readings made no sense. Something huge was moving near the void barrier, something that should not exist. "Run a full sensor sweep," he ordered. The ship's computers worked for several minutes. The results came back. Du-Hyen felt his heart stop. There were ships out there, dozens of them. It's all appearing from hyperspace jumps beyond the void barrier.
"This
is impossible," Krixta chittered nervously. "Nothing can survive in the void. The energy field destroys all matter that tries to cross it." Du-Hyen stared at the sensor readings. The ships were clearly visible now. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. The designs were strange but somehow familiar. They looked old but well-maintained. Most importantly, they were broadcasting identification signals. Human identification signals. "Engineer Voss," Du-Hyen called to the crystal being. "Are you reading these transmissions?" Voss glowed brighter as he processed the data. "Captain, the ships are using old Earth communication protocols. The signals are definitely human in origin." Du-Hyen felt dizzy. This was impossible. Humans had been trapped in their solar system for over 200 years. No human had ever crossed the void barrier and lived. The alien governments had made sure of that. More ships kept appearing, first dozens, then hundreds. They arranged themselves in perfect military formation just beyond the barrier. It was clear they were organized and disciplined. The lead ship was massive. It was easily 3 times the size of Du-Hyen's patrol vessel. Its hull was scarred and patched in many places. It looked like it had survived countless battles in deep space. Captain Krixta said quietly, "The lead ship is hailing us." Du-Hyen's hands shook as he activated the communication system. Hologram appeared above his command console. The figure that materialized made him gasp. It was a human woman. But she looked different from any human Du-Hyen had ever seen. She was tall and lean. Her skin was pale from years without natural sunlight. Her eyes were larger than normal, adapted for seeing in the darkness of space. Scars crossed her face and hands, telling stories of survival in impossible conditions. But what struck Du-Hyen most was her presence. This woman commanded respect. She carried herself like someone who had faced death and won. "This is Admiral Yen Seo Choi of the Terran Exodus Fleet," the woman said. Her voice was strong and clear. "We have been trying to come home for 212 years. We need immediate assistance and safe passage through the void barrier." Du-Hyen could not speak. He stared at the Admiral in shock. Behind her, he could see other crew members moving around the bridge of her ship. All of them looked like her, changed, adapted, dangerous. "I repeat," Admiral Choi continued. "This is the Terran Exodus Fleet requesting permission to return to human space." We have critical information about threats beyond the galactic rim. Finally, Du Haiyan found his voice. Admiral, this is Captain Du Haiyan Lee of the Galactic Patrol. How did you survive beyond the void barrier? Admiral Choi smiled, but it was not a happy expression. Captain Lee, we did more than survive. We learned, we adapted. We built a civilization that spans multiple star systems. And now we are coming home. The communication ended. Du Haiyan sat in his command chair, trying to process what he had just witnessed. A human fleet had somehow crossed the void barrier. Not only had they survived in the empty space beyond, they had thrived. Captain Engineer Voss said, his crystal form pulsing with concern. I am detecting more gravitational anomalies. More ships are arriving. Du Haiyan looked at his sensors. Voss was right. Ship after ship materialized from hyperspace. The human fleet was growing larger by the hour. Soon, there were over 1,000 vessels arranged in formation. Krixta, send an emergency transmission to Galactic Command. Tell them we have a situation. While his navigation officer sent the message, Du Haiyan studied the human ships more carefully. They were built for long-term space travel. The hulls were thick and reinforced. The engines were more advanced than anything in the current galactic fleet. These ships had been designed to survive in the harshest conditions imaginable. More importantly, they were armed. Du Haiyan could see weapon systems that he did not recognize. Humans had spent 2 centuries developing technology in isolation. They had become something new. The response from Galactic Command came quickly. The message was marked with the highest priority codes. Captain Lee maintained safe distance from the human vessels. Do not engage. Do not allow them to cross the void barrier. A task force is being assembled to deal with this situation. Du Haiyan read the message with growing unease. The galactic governments were panicking. They had never expected humans to return from beyond the barrier. Now they did not know what to do. Over the next few hours, more patrol ships arrived, then military cruisers, then entire battle fleets from different alien species. Everyone wanted to see the impossible human fleet that had appeared from nowhere, but the humans did not seem worried by the military buildup. They maintained their formation and waited patiently. Admiral Choi broadcast regular messages requesting safe passage home. Back on the research station, Dr. Hannah Kim received a priority transmission that made her heart race. It was from Admiral Choi herself. Dr. Kim, this is Admiral Choi of the Terran Exodus Fleet. We have been monitoring galactic communications for years. We received your research broadcasts about our signals. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for believing we were still alive. Hannah sat in her small laboratory. With tears streaming down her face, she had been right. The signals were real. Lost humans had survived. After 3 years of being called crazy, she had finally been proven correct. We are coming home, Dr. Kim, the Admiral continued. But we are not the same people who left Earth 2 centuries ago. We have seen things beyond the galactic rim. We have learned things that will change everything. Prepare Earth for our return. Jin Wuxiu stood beside Hannah, watching the transmission with amazement. Dr. Kim, you did it. Phew. Found them. Hannah wiped the tears from her eyes. No, Jinwu. They found us. They never stopped trying to come home. Across the galaxy, emergency meetings were being called. The careful balance of power that had existed for centuries was about to be shattered. The humans were coming home, and they were no longer the weak species that had been exiled long ago. The sky was about to burn. The Galactic Council building had never seen such chaos. Emergency sessions were called at all hours. Alien delegates rushed through the corridors with worried expressions. The impossible had happened, and nobody knew what to do about it. Ambassador Taemin Jang sat in his office reading reports that made his head spin. For 200 years, he had been humanity's voice in the galactic government. His job had always been simple. Keep humans contained and peaceful. Make sure they followed alien rules, accept their place as a junior species in the galaxy. Now, everything had changed. The reports came from all across known space. Human ships were appearing everywhere, not just at the void barrier, but at dozens of different locations. Long-range scanners detected massive structures being built in deep space, technologies that should not exist. Worst of all, evidence of contact with species from beyond the galactic rim. Taman had always believed the alien governments. When they said humans were too dangerous for space travel, he thought the void barrier was necessary protection. Trusted that the lost colonists had died quickly in the empty void. But the reports told a different story. The humans had not died. They had built something incredible. A soft chime indicated someone was at his door. Enter, Taman called. Doctor. Hana Kim walked into his office. She looked different from the broken woman who had been dismissed by the council months ago. Now she stood tall and confident. Her eyes sparkled with vindication. Ambassador Zhang, she said politely. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Taman gestured to a chair across from his desk. Dr. Kim, it seems I owe you an apology. Your research was correct. Hannah sat down and placed a data pad on his desk. Ambassador, there is something you need to know. Something the council has been hiding from all of us. She activated the device. A holographic display appeared above the desk. It showed historical documents that Taman had never seen before. These are classified files from the early days of the Void Barrier, Hannah explained. The aliens did not build the barrier to protect other species from human aggression. They built it because they were afraid of human potential. Taman leaned forward to study the documents. They were written in multiple alien languages. Translations were shocking. According to these files, Hannah continued, humans were advancing too quickly. In just a few hundred years, we had gone from primitive cave dwellers to space explorers. The alien governments were worried we would surpass them technologically. The documents showed secret meetings between alien leaders. They discussed the human problem and various solutions. Some wanted to destroy Earth entirely. Others suggested limiting human development. The Void Barrier was chosen as a compromise. They cut off our colonies not to protect other species, Hannah said. They did it to prevent humans from learning too much about the galaxy. They wanted to keep us ignorant and dependent. Taman felt sick as he read the files. Everything he had believed was a lie. Humans had been imprisoned not because they were dangerous, but because they were too successful. Dr. Kim, where did you get these documents? Admiral Choi sent them to me, Hannah replied. The Exodus fleet has been gathering intelligence about the galactic governments for decades. They know the truth about why they were abandoned. Before Taman could respond, emergency alarms began sounding throughout the building. Red lights flashed in the corridors. An automated voice announced that all delegates should report to the main council chamber. Immediately, Hannah and Taman hurried through the crowded hallways. Other delegates pushed past them with panic in their eyes. Something major was happening. The council chamber was in chaos when they arrived. Alien representatives shouted at each other in dozens of different languages. The large display screens around the room showed images that made everyone afraid. Human ships were not just sitting peacefully at the Void Barrier anymore. They were moving. Hundreds of vessels had begun advancing toward the barrier itself. More importantly, the barrier was responding to their presence. Commander Zixtel, the lead Throkari delegate, called for order. His voice cut through the noise, like a blade. The human fleet is attempting to breach the Void Barrier, he announced. Our defense systems are preparing to respond. Taman stood up from his seat. For the first time in his career, he felt angry at the council. Honored delegates, he said loudly. These are human citizens trying to return home. They have been exiled for over 2 centuries. Why are we treating them as enemies? Commander Zixtel's insect eyes focused on Taman with cold hatred. Because they are no longer the weak species we remember, Ambassador Zhang. Our scans show technologies we do not understand. Weapons we cannot identify. They have become something dangerous. The display screens changed to show detailed scans of the human ships. The alien delegates gasped at what they saw. The human vessels were armed with weapons that looked more advanced than anything in the galactic fleet. Their hulls were made from materials that should not exist. Their engines operated on principles that violated known physics. How is this possible? Asked a Vexahol representative, its crystal form flashing with fear. Dr. Hannah Kim stood up beside Taman. Because you underestimated us. You always have. She activated her data pad again. This time the hologram showed population estimates and technological projections. When you cut off the colonies, there were over 50,000 humans beyond the barrier. That was 200 years ago. They did not just survive. They grew. They learned. They adapted to conditions you thought were impossible. The council chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed this information. They built a civilization in the void between galaxies, Hannah continued. They developed technologies born from necessity. They became stronger because they had to. Suddenly, all the display screens in the chamber changed. A new image appeared. It was Admiral Choi, broadcasting from her flagship. But she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives from dozens of different species. Aliens that none of the council members had ever seen before. "Honored Galactic Council," Admiral Choi said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. "I am Admiral Yeniso Choi of the Terran Confederation. We return not as the exiled humans you remember, but as the leaders of a new alliance." The alien delegates stared in shock at the strange species standing behind the Admiral. Some looked like humans, but with obvious adaptations for different environments. Others were completely alien but wore human-style uniforms. "For 200 years we have been exploring beyond the galactic rim," Admiral Choi continued. "We have encountered species you never knew existed. We have formed alliances based on mutual respect rather than fear. We have built something unprecedented in galactic history." Commander Zixtel found his voice. "What do you want?" Admiral Choi smiled. It was not a threatening expression, but it was not entirely friendly either. "We want to come home. We want to reunite with our families on Earth. We want to share what we have learned with our human brothers and sisters." She paused and looked directly at the camera. "But we will not be caged again. The void barrier ends today. The old system of galactic control ends today. A new era begins now." The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted in panic as delegates realized their carefully maintained order was about to collapse. Taman looked at Hannah with a mixture of pride and fear. "Dr. Kim, what have we awakened?" Hannah smiled as she watched the chaos around them. "Not awakened, Ambassador. We have welcomed. Home, our family, is coming back to us." Outside the council building, the first human ships crossed the void barrier without being destroyed. The energy field that had contained humanity for centuries simply parted before them like water. The exile was over. The real changes were just beginning. Captain Soyoung Kim had been sleeping when the universe caught fire. The emergency alarms on her patrol cruiser screamed so loudly that she fell out of her bunk. She had never heard the ship's computer sound so panicked. Captain called her. "Science Officer Woojin Lim, over the ship's communication system. You need to get to the bridge immediately. Something impossible is happening." Soyoung pulled on her uniform and ran through the corridors of her ship. Other crew members were moving with the same urgency. Everyone looked scared and confused. When she reached the bridge, she understood why. The main display screen showed something that should not exist. The sky above the galactic core was filled with explosions. Massive ships were appearing from nowhere. The space around them burned with energy weapons and plasma fire. "Report," Soyoung ordered as she took her command chair. Captain Woojin said, his voice shaking. "The alien coalition tried to reinforce the void barrier to keep the human fleet out. They used every weapon they had." Soyoung watched the display. In horror, she could see the remains of the great energy barrier that had contained humanity for centuries. It was breaking apart like glass. Huge sections collapsed and dissolved into space. "The humans did not come alone," Woojin continued. "They brought allies. Lots of allies." As if summoned by his words, massive ships began materializing throughout the star system. Soyoung had never seen vessels like these before. Were clearly human in design, but far more advanced than anything Earth had ever built. Others were completely alien, with shapes and technologies that hurt to look at. "God," Soyoung whispered. "How many of them are there?" The answer came in the form of a galaxy-wide broadcast. Admiral Choi's face appeared on every communication screen in known space. Behind her, the The bridge of her flagship buzzed with activity from dozens of different species. "People of the galaxy," Admiral Choi announced. "I am Admiral Yanesio Choi of the Terran Confederation. For too long, a small group of species has controlled who can travel among the stars. For too long, they have decided which races deserve freedom and which must be contained." Soyoung watched in amazement as the human fleet spread throughout the system. There were thousands of ships now. Some were warships bristling with weapons. Others were massive construction vessels that began building structures in empty space. "That ends today," Admiral Choi continued. "The Terran Confederation encompasses 47 different species across 12 galaxies. We have come to liberate not just humanity, but all the species that have been held back by fear and prejudice." The alien military response was swift, but useless. Thrakari battle cruisers fired their most powerful weapons at the human ships. The energy beams simply bounced off advanced shields that should not exist. Vexel crystal ships tried to ram the human vessels, only to shatter against hulls made from materials stronger than diamond. Captain Wu Jin called out urgently, "I am detecting massive gravitational disturbances near Earth. More ships are arriving." Soyoung changed the display to show the Sol system. What she saw made her heart stop. Hundreds of human ships were descending through Earth's atmosphere, but these were not invasion vessels. They were passenger ships, transport vessels. Ships. They are going home, she realized. On Earth, Dr. Hannah Kim stood in her childhood home in Seoul. She pressed her face against the window and watched as humanity's lost. Children returned from the stars. The sky was filled with ships of every size and shape. Some landed in open fields. Others hovered over cities, sending down smaller shuttles. The news broadcasts were chaotic. Government officials did not know what to do. Military commanders had no orders for this situation. Nobody had ever planned for the return of the lost colonies, but the people of Earth reacted differently. Families who had lost relatives centuries ago gathered in the streets. They held signs with old names and photographs. They hoped against hope that their ancestors might still be alive somewhere among the returning. Fleet. Hannah's doorbell rang. She opened it to find a tall woman in a strange uniform. The woman looked human, but different. Her skin was pale from years in space. Her eyes were larger than normal. Scars crossed her hands and arms. "Dr. Kim," the woman said. "My name is Captain Manesio Park. I commanded a deep space exploration vessel for the Confederation. Admiral Choi asked me to find you personally." Hannah felt tears in her eyes. "You came back. You all came back." Captain Park smiled. "We never stopped trying to come home. Your research broadcasts helped us find the right frequencies to reach Earth. You gave us hope when we needed it most." Behind Captain Park, Hannah could see other returned humans walking through the streets of Seoul. They moved with the confidence of people who had survived impossible challenges. Some carried children who had been born in deep space. Others helped elderly relatives who remembered Earth from their youth. Dr. Kim, Captain Park, continued, "There is something you need to know. We did not just survive in exile. We discovered things beyond the galactic rim. Threats that make the current alien governments look like children," and I felt a chill of fear. "What kind of threats? Species that consume entire galaxies. Machine intelligences that turn planets into factories. Entities that exist beyond normal space and time." Captain Park's expression grew serious. The Confederation was not just about coming home. It was about preparing for what is coming. Across the galaxy, the old order was collapsing faster than anyone had expected. The rigid system that had kept species separated was breaking down. The void barriers that had contained dozens of other races were being destroyed one by one, but it was not happening through conquest. The humans were offering something the galaxy had never seen before: true cooperation between different species. The aliens in the Confederation were not subjects or slaves. They were partners and family members. On the space station where Hannah had worked, Jin Woo-seo watched the transformation with wonder. Alien species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together on human ships. Thrakari and Vexahol crews shared the same vessels. Species that had never met before were learning from each other. It is beautiful, he said to himself, but not everyone was happy about the changes. In secret meetings across the galaxy, representatives from the old government systems planned resistance. They could not accept that humans had become the dominant force in galactic politics. Commander Sixtel met with other military leaders in a hidden base. His insect eyes burned with hatred as he watched reports of human success. This cannot be. Allowed to continue, he clicked angrily. Humans are too dangerous. They will destroy the order we have maintained for millennia. What do you suggest? Asked a Vexahol general, its crystal form pulsing red with anger. We contact our allies beyond the galactic rim, Zixtel replied. There are forces out there that even the humans cannot defeat. We make a deal with them. The Thrakari commander did not realize that his communications were being monitored. Human intelligence networks had been watching the old government officials for weeks. They knew about the secret meetings. They knew about the plans for resistance. Most importantly, they knew about the contacts with dangerous forces beyond the galaxy. Admiral Choi received the intelligence reports on her flagship as it orbited Earth. She read them with growing concern. The old alien governments were more desperate than she had expected. Desperate enough to ally with the very threats the Confederation had been preparing to fight. Admiral Harade reported, "We have confirmation. The Thrakari have sent messages beyond the galactic rim. They are offering to help hostile forces in exchange for removing human influence." Admiral Choi looked out at Earth through the bridge. Windows, her home planet, looked so peaceful from space. So beautiful. So vulnerable. Then we moved to the final phase, she said quietly. Contact all Confederation fleets. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity learned in the void. The sky had burned with the collapse of the old order. But Admiral Choi knew that the real fire was yet to come. Forces beyond the galactic rim were awakening. And humanity would need every ally they had made to survive what was coming. The return home was complete. Now the real war would begin. 6 months had passed since the sky burned, and the galaxy changed forever. Dr. Hannah Kim stood in her new office at the Seoul Research Center and marveled at how different the world had become. Through her large windows, she could see ships from dozens of species landing and taking off from the expanded spaceport. The rigid barriers that had kept different races apart were gone. The void barriers that had imprisoned entire civilizations had been dismantled. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together on joint projects. It was the galaxy that Hannah had always dreamed of, but never thought she would see. Her title was now Director of Xenological Relations. Her job was to help different species learn to cooperate and understand each other. It was challenging work, but deeply rewarding. Jinwoo SEO entered her office carrying 2 cups of tea. He had been promoted to Chief Communications Coordinator. Between Earth and the Confederation fleets, his small communication station had grown into a massive facility that handled thousands of messages every day. "Dr. Kim," he said, setting a cup on her desk. "The morning reports from the outer colonies are ready." Hannah accepted the tea gratefully. Even with all the changes, some things remained the same. Jinwoo still brought her tea, and she still worked. "Too many hours? Any problems?" she asked. "A few minor disputes between Thrakari and Vexahol settlements on the mining worlds," Jinwoo replied. "But nothing that cannot be resolved through discussion. Most species are adapting well to the new cooperative system." Hannah nodded. The transformation had not been perfect. Some alien governments had resisted the changes violently. The Thrakari military had attempted several rebellions before finally accepting the new order. But overall, the galaxy was more peaceful, now than it had been in centuries. Dr. Kim Jinwoo continued. "Admiral Choi has requested a meeting with you. She says it is important." Before Hannah could respond, her office door opened and Admiral Choi walked in. The woman looked tired but determined. Her uniform bore new insignia, marking her as Supreme Commander of the Confederation Defense Forces. Admiral Hannah said, standing. To greet her visitor, "What brings you to Earth?" "Hannah, we need to talk privately." Admiral Choi's expression was serious. "Ginwoo, could you give us a few minutes?" After Ginwu left, Admiral Choi activated a small device that created a privacy field around Hannah's office. No one could hear their conversation now. Hannah, you know that our return to the galaxy was not just about coming home. We discovered threats beyond the galactic rim during our exile. Threats that could destroy everything we have built. Hannah sat down heavily in her chair. She had heard rumors about dangerous forces in deep space, but Admiral Choi had never discussed the details before. The intelligence reports we intercepted 6 months ago were correct, Admiral Choi continued. The old alien governments did contact hostile forces beyond the galaxy. They offered to help these entities in exchange for destroying human influence. What kind of entities? Hannah asked. Admiral Choi walked to the window and looked out at the peaceful city below. Have you ever heard of the Devourers, Hannah? Felt a chill run down her spine. During her months as director, she had read classified reports about the Confederation's encounters in deep space. The Devourers were mentioned in several files, but always with heavy censoring. Machine intelligences that consume entire star systems, Admiral Choi explained. They turn planets into raw materials for building more machines. They have already destroyed 3 galaxies beyond our rim. Are they coming here? Hannah whispered. They're already here, Admiral Choi replied grimly. Our long-range scouts detected Devourer probe ships entering the outer edges of our galaxy 2 weeks ago. The old alien governments opened a door they cannot close. Hannah stood up from her chair. What can we do? Admiral Choi turned away from the window and smiled. It was the first time Hannah had seen her look genuinely happy in months. That is why I came to see you, Hannah. The Confederation has been preparing for this fight for decades, but we need something more than weapons and ships. We need what you have always understood better than anyone. What do you mean, Family Admiral Choi? Said simply, the Devourers are individual machines working toward a single goal. They do not understand cooperation. They do not understand sacrifice for others. They do not understand love. Admiral Choi activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Hundreds of species were now working together under Confederation leadership. Former enemies had become allies. Isolated races had joined a larger community. You helped us understand that the signals from space were family calling home, Admiral Choi continued. Now, we need you to help the entire galaxy understand that we are all family. Every species, every world, every individual. We are stronger together than we could ever be apart. Hannah looked at the hologram with growing understanding. You want me to coordinate the defense effort? I want you to coordinate the unity effort, Admiral Choi corrected. The Devourers expect us to fight like the old galaxy did, separate species protecting only their own interests. They do not expect us to fight like family. Weeks, Hannah threw herself into the most important work of her life. She traveled to dozens of worlds, meeting with leaders from every species in the galaxy. She helped organize joint training programs, cultural exchange initiatives, and cooperative research projects. The most touching moment came when she visited a frontier world where Thrakari farmers worked alongside human colonists. Their children played together in the fields, learning each other's languages and customs. When Hannah asked a young Thrakari girl what she wanted to be when she grew up, the child replied, I want to be like Dr. Kim and help different people be friends. Jinwoo accompanied Hannah on most of her travels. He had become skilled at translating not just languages, but cultural concepts between different species. His own family story had helped many others understand the importance of staying connected. Across vast distances, do you think it will work? He asked one evening, as they returned to Earth from a successful diplomatic mission. It has to work, Hannah replied, because the alternative is losing everything we have built. The first major test came when Devourer scouts attacked a mining colony on the outer rim. The old response would have been for each species to protect only their own people. Instead, Thrakari, Vexahol, and human ships responded together as a unified fleet. The battle was brief, but decisive. The Devourer machines, programmed to fight individual opponents, could not adapt to coordinated attacks from multiple species using different technologies and tactics. They were destroyed quickly and efficiently. News of the victory spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had been hesitant to fully join the Confederation now requested membership. The unity that Hannah had been building became stronger with each passing day. Admiral Choi found Hannah in her old laboratory, the same small room where she had first discovered the signals from space. Hannah was working on a new project, a galaxy-wide communication network that would allow instant contact between all Confederation worlds. "Hannah," Admiral Choi said, "the main Devourer fleet has been detected at the galactic edge. Over 10,000 ships. They will be here within a month." Hannah looked up from her work. "Are we ready? We have built the largest defensive fleet in galactic history.
Hundreds of species working together.
Technologies shared freely between former enemies. Battle plans that use the strengths of every race." Admiral Choi paused and looked around the small laboratory where everything had started. "But most importantly, we have something the Devourers will never understand. We have family. We have people worth fighting for." Hannah saved her work and stood up. Outside her window, she could see children from a dozen different species playing. In the research center's garden, their laughter echoed through the corridors, a sound of hope and joy that had been missing from the galaxy for too long. "Then let them come," Hannah said quietly. "They will learn what happens when you threaten someone's family." As the two women left the laboratory together, the lights of 1,000 ships could be seen rising from Earth's surface. Ships carrying crews from every corner of the galaxy. Ships flying together under a single banner. Ships going out to defend their home. The signals from space had led to this moment. A lonely researcher's belief in family had become a galaxy's greatest strength. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the Devourers were about to learn that humanity's greatest discovery was not technology or weapons. It was the understanding that everyone, no matter how different, could become family. The homecoming was complete. The real family was just beginning.